Congrats on getting beyond $1 million. What got you here won't always get you there. This is a podcast for entrepreneurs who want to reach beyond their 7-figure business and scale to 8, 9, and even 10 figures. I'm Brad Weimert, and as the founder of EasyPay Direct, I have had the privilege to work with more than 30,000 businesses, allowing me to see the data behind what some of the most successful companies on the planet are doing differently. Join me each week as I dig in with experts in sales, marketing, operations, technology, and wealth building. And you'll learn some of the specific tools, tactics, and strategies that are working today in those multi-million, 8, 9, and 10-figure businesses. Life can get exciting beyond $1 million. This week, we have Aaron Amuchastegui. He is a good friend with 850 single-family homes, several software companies, and he's gone to zero twice in his entrepreneurial career. This is an awesome episode with lots of big takeaways and some really tactical advice for investing in real estate. If you are an entrepreneur at all, which I assume you are if you're listening, you're going to love this one. Aaron Amuchastegui. It took me more than a couple of years to figure out how to say your last name.
Dude, I love that you nailed it though. Like I have close friends that still aren't even close every time they do it. It's hilarious.
Well, I get Weimert a lot.
Yeah.
Yep. That's the common one. And you know, what are you going to do?
But also like a little like early business tip, right? When people do say it right, I know they've done their homework, right? I know they've like practiced and looked at it. So they're instantly, if they go, oh, you're Aaron Amuchastegui, like they're instantly going to get a little bit extra of my attention. Totally. Because I know it took some effort. And it was like something that was important to them that they wanted to say it right. So.
Oh, I love that, man. Well, let's talk about business. So I know you through really real estate friends and some very close ones. I want to give me some stats on kind of your real estate world today, because I think that's helpful for context, and then we'll back up and lead into it.
Yeah. And I think for everybody getting to listen and get to watch this, Brad and I are both I'm super excited because you and I don't get to chat often enough.
Yeah.
Like we never get to like sit down and actually like chat for an hour. We get to see each other in slower parts. So this was like a great opportunity. So everybody's getting like this backstage, pass to two friends hanging out, getting to share stuff we haven't got to share before.
Yes, totally.
Right? Because you're like, hey, I know your story. Yeah. If we're going to just fast forward to today, which most people are like, they look and they go, how is that attainable? So like real estate, I own about 850 rentals around Austin, Texas that are single family. Like 20% of those I own just me and my wife. The others we own with investors. I've got a giant apartment complex. I recently built like a climate controlled storage in Michigan. And then have some software companies. And so like my software companies are all real estate related, but they kind of help people, buy software, and help people buy foreclosures, buy real estate, things like that. So it's like software that I built for me that now we like sell to the masses. And so now I've got, 4 or 5 different companies, that are all in that similar space. But it was really cool. Like, 2020 when COVID hit and like one of the companies gets shut down, the other 4 are fine, to see. And it's nice to go, wow, I've established something pretty incredible now and I get to stay grateful for it. But yeah, it seemed like for people when they first hear that, sometimes people like turn off, go, oh, that can never be me. But I want to say like 7 years ago, I was broke. So I was at zero again. I got reset a few times. So 7 years ago I was broke. Now have, knock on wood. I don't think I can go, who knows, right? But yeah, I think I've now set up enough of established businesses that I'm okay for the future.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that one of the things that I like about targeting established entrepreneurs and giving education to established entrepreneurs is that they don't turn off by the big numbers, right? I think the masses, when you look at people that are just getting going in the entrepreneurial space, they hear the big numbers, they can't relate, and it scares them away.
Yeah.
And once people hit, sort of the million or multi-million or 8-figure, it depends on the type of business, but once they hit this place where they're generating enough revenue that they kind of like made it and they could be done if they wanted to, then you get this sort of freedom to think without pressure. And you think, oh shit, what else could I do right now? Or what do I do with the money I have, right? What's the next chapter? So I like starting with the numbers because it helps people say, oh, and then backing into it and say, oh, how do I get there? Shit, 7 years is what it took.
Yeah.
And really a lifetime. that led to a reset in 7 years. But interestingly enough, I don't know your backstory. And I almost listened to it in prep for this.
Yeah.
And I didn't, because I listened to an interview. I started an interview on Bigger Pockets. Yeah. And he opened, what's his name?
Brandon Turner.
Brandon Turner, right. So Brandon opened the episode and said basically what I just said. And he said, I kept wanting to know your story, but I knew we'd record someday. So I didn't listen to it. And I wanted to have it here. And I literally turned off the recording at that point. And I was like, shit, I'm going to do the same thing.
Yeah. You're right. That's why it's even more fun, right? We're getting to know each other better and get to share
totally
all sorts of stuff.
Totally. So how did you, what was the beginning of business for you?
Yeah. So I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, meaning like from like young age, my dad, I saw him like run a business. And I saw the failure years where he had to like shut down and go like sell stuff door to door, and other times when it was growing. But from a really young age, anytime I saw anything, it was like, the first time you go to Costco and you see the box of all the Snickers. and then I'm like, so if I buy these from Costco and I go sell them at school for like 50 cents a piece at the time, or $1 a piece at the time, like how much money can I make? Right. So I've always looked at like stuff out there as like how much money is getting made here. Or when I'm sitting in a restaurant, I'm looking around and I'm going like, how many people are in here? How full is it? Or when we're at the clubs, all right, so what's their overhead in here? Anything like that. So I'm always like looking at stuff. But it was a slow journey for me to actually jump in. I always wanted to jump in. I went to school, for construction management. After, and that's like fast forwarding to like 23. By the time I was 23, I had a bunch of life experiences. I had a bunch of like, I was set up really well. I made some big mistakes and got kind of reset. Back in school, I was 23 when I was going back to school, and graduated in 2005. It's like the height of the housing boom. I was in Central California at the time. So like, that's like the height of the housing boom, and the height of the housing boom in the US. Because I was an older student and I'd already had like a couple resets in my life by that point, I felt like I was catching up. So I was like trying to be the best student. I was trying to really, really learn. And graduating in 2005 as like the top of the class, I got recruited by all these home builders. So now 2005 hits. I'm working for these home building companies that are like, they're these machines, man. They're building houses in like 45 days. As soon as the house hits the market, they've got a buyer. It's just this fine-tuned machine. We're golfing like 2 days a week, and the home builder's just counting their money. And I have this really unrealistic expectation of what life is going to be. Right? It's like, cool. I graduated from college. I'm making 6 figures. I'm golfing 2 days a week. The widgets that we're selling are selling really, really quick. And I had about a year of that, just going like, okay, so every year I'll get like a 10 or 15% raise. Sometimes, some year I'll get my bonuses, and maybe someday I'll become the owner, one of the owners of this company. The housing market then, started coming to a halt in like 2008, 2009. And so then all of a sudden quickly I get a call from those guys, and they go, hey, we're laying off 75 employees. I'm down in Santa Barbara, California at the time. We're laying off 75 employees. There's now 5 of us left. And wow, if you can move to Sacramento this weekend, you can keep your job.
Wow.
And we were like, and it wasn't like, here's where you can stay but it was just like, okay, we're closing that office. You've got to get to Sacramento this weekend if you want to keep your job, and good luck. Right? Because that's where the last 5 were. And so we quickly went from this like giant company to me seeing these guys that had been well established having to do all these different bank workouts. At that time, they had hundreds and hundreds of houses that were now upside down in like the biggest housing crisis ever. And I'm having to watch them negotiate with these banks and going, well, if you don't foreclose on us, this is the deal that we'll do instead. Or, just trying this leverage of people that are like totally upside down, but trying to negotiate back and forth. And so we went to I got to like start learning all these different bank workouts. And I went from golfing a couple days a week to like doing manual labor again. And like I had my hammer out and we're on site doing the cleaning. We're doing all the things that trades would normally do, because the trades wouldn't work for them anymore because they weren't getting paid. And so I got to see like successful business and then crash. And then during that time, we kept trying to figure out what was next.
I've got to pause you on that, because that exercise it's so valuable. Like, I frequently say that part of me, I don't actually wish, but part of me wishes that I'd worked for some company at some point in time, because I'm making everything up. Yeah. And if instead I could have just fucking listened to somebody that had already done it, that had a system that worked, I'd have value there. And it would have shortcut so many things in my life. So how in tune with, you kept saying the phrase bank workout, how many, which is renegotiating the debt on things functionally, I think, and the contracts around it. How close were you to that process at that time?
And bank workouts then were a new thing. They like hadn't really been invented yet. So everybody was getting to kind of figure it out as they went. So I wasn't in the rooms as they were getting negotiated. But then when it came to fulfilling the deal of the workouts, I was very, very a part of that. So what that really meant, so some of a normal sort of workout that started to happen. Mm-hmm. So like we're in a neighborhood where houses had been selling for $750,000. Now they're selling for $250,000. The bank debt's like $500 on them. Right. And so we have like 50 houses in this neighborhood that all have somewhere between like $15,000 and $20,000 worth of work left to finish. So they gave the bank this option. They said, okay, one, you foreclose and it's yours. You guys take over. Right. And you can come after us for the balance, but we're broke. We're bankrupt anyway. These are the guys that I was working for. Or what we'll do is we will stay on the job. We don't know if the houses are going to be worth 200 or 250 or 300, but we know we will get you the maximum amount that the market will give us, right? We will do better than the bank will because we have the plans, we have the trades, we know what's going on there. And so the deal was we will do our best to finish this project. We'll do our best to finish this project and sell them for the maximum amount possible, knowing that like whatever the bank's asset was, it's no longer worth 500 now. Maybe now it's worth 250 a door, but whatever it was, we were going to help them maximize. If they foreclosed on us, maybe they were going to end up with like 150 or 250 a door. But it was also really interesting because we hadn't made any bank payments now for a while. Mm-hmm. And we're having to ask them, but we need money to finish these projects. Mm-hmm. So not only is it like, hey, we need you to like lay off on those payments and we're going to keep working, but we need some help in paying the trades. And so that was the part that I was really integral in to try. So the bank would start to put some money aside for each house. Go, okay, there's 15 or 20,000 set aside for this house to finish. And us trying to figure out that balance between like, okay, the bank is going to authorize us to spend 20,000 to finish this. What trades can we have do it? Is there some stuff we can self-perform to like keep payroll running too? Like what can we do inside this process of the workout? Wow. And it was this really, really creative thing of seeing like, where like banks have like very strict rules, right? Like there's all these like really strict things that come inside. But then when like shit hits the fan, like it really takes smart people to realize, like it took a lot of banks a little while to go like, we shouldn't just foreclose on these for the debt. We shouldn't just like figure out what it's going to take to do it. Like we have a response. There are other ways where we can get through this process and we're going to get hurt no matter what. So instead of like having our feelings hurt and doing what's always been done, right? Let's be creative and have it be just not quite as bad.
Yeah. I mean, I think that you see it way more often in business than in the rest of life, but emotionally stable, self-aware, and smart people, and I think it requires all of those things, are better at looking at the pragmatic outcome. So what is being pragmatic about the outcome? What is the outcome that you actually want? And if you can't get it, how do you get the best outcome you can? And very often emotion gets in the way of getting to that outcome. And that's a really good example, right? It's very easy for the banker to say, fuck these guys.
Yeah. Didn't get what we wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. They're way off. They owe us a ton of money, just foreclosed, but that doesn't produce the outcome that they want. And they couldn't get to the outcome they wanted. So how do you negotiate? And I think you're right. It takes smart people, but it also takes those sort of emotionally adjusted people that can navigate through that and keep going. How did that work from, and I lived through that era, but like I lived through it I had some terrible real estate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a handful of properties in the Midwest that were horribly upside down. And that's its own story. But, and I did have other assets, so I couldn't foreclose. Mm-hmm. I would be far worse off. So I just had this slow bleed with upside down properties that I eventually sold at a loss to get rid of them, get them off the books.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a terrible situation. But what was the win-win for them ultimately? What happened with the company in the end, and how did that resolve itself?
Yeah. And you're talking about the thing you just described as real estate, right? Like sometimes we go like, oh, we have a loss. Let's just take it and move on. Like let's, figuring out. And before I jump into that answer, I just think it's so important that we just re-say the thing you said a second ago is like, what's one of the things that if I was going to like tell entrepreneurs, like part of the secret of life and business, it is no matter what situation you're in today, what is the best possible outcome you can get out of it? Right. And sometimes, the emotionally adjusted, or you're super mad and you want to fire somebody or you want to do whatever, but just like taking a breath and taking some time and like getting some mentors and like having these other people. There's all these ways to like jumpstart success, like joining masterminds and meeting people, but like just take a minute and then go back and go, what is the absolute best thing I can do right now with this scenario? Like, okay, instead of getting 75 cents on our money, can we get 65 cents on our money? Mm-hmm. Like, and sometimes you have to accept like, okay, this is going to be a loss. We're going to have to walk from this, but like, how can we minimize the pain, or what's the least amount of pain we can get, even if it's a lot of pain? It's also kind of like golf. Like no matter what happened on that last shot, you always need to focus on like your next one. Like the most important one is the next one. Mm-hmm. Regardless of what happened, like you got to keep going. It's one of the sports that I love. But so what happened during that workout? Like the goal of the workout was survival. The goal of the workout was that the guys that owned companies would essentially get to keep their house, get to keep their primary residences because they signed personal guarantees on everything. Get to keep their residences without their personal guarantees being taken over. They just wanted to have enough to get a second chance, right? To not go to zero and then be crushed all the way to zero, to where there's like no basis, no anything, where you're totally starting from scratch. But part of the entrepreneur journey that I've learned from them and through my own is like what a true entrepreneur can see is they can realize like, I know special ways to make money. I've got some specialties that I found are my niches, right? But also this time to go that no matter what, I know there'll be another way to make money. I know I'll spot it. I know I'll see it, whether it's the restaurant, whether it's the club, whether it's selling Snickers, I'll see the thing and then be able to do it. So sometimes it's about waiting for those opportunities. But as we fast forward, so the company survived, right? They survived in the sense that like after we finished these bank workouts, we started to figure out other ways that we could kind of pivot. And they started doing like remodels for like hotels and like new hotel construction, because commercial construction is very expensive trades. Mm-hmm. Residential real estate was very inexpensive trades because of the supply demand equation. Well, now we were able to go to some of these people building hotels and be like, hey, can we bid your framing jobs? And we would go like be the guys that would like clean up and talk to the owners of the commercial stuff. And then we would hire our framers from the residential construction stuff. And so we spent about 6 months like doing some of that to get some money back in the coffers. But it was a lot of hustling. It was a lot of like, how do we make payroll next month? And then we started to figure out like, where do our skills apply in other places? So in home building, we got really good at like building machine, at like knowing about sales and marketing programs, knowing how to maximize value, knowing how to value things. Well, we started to see, foreclosures at the time listed for sale. You'd see an open house and like, this house is selling for $200,000. There's a bunch of holes in the wall. There's concrete in the toilets, but it could still sell for $350,000 today. Kind of like the housing market today. Like even though it's slow and affordability is down, there's still some people that want to buy a house. There's still people that want to buy. So we're like, what can this supply? So first we said, hey, let's buy these bank-owned foreclosures and fix them and sell them, because we could see, hey, it won't cost that much to fix that house back up. But an average buyer couldn't, or an average buyer, they were an FHA buyer. They only had like enough for their down payment. So they had $10,000 down payment. They could buy the house for $200, but they didn't have the extra $30 to fix it up. But if we fixed it up, they could get a loan and buy it from us for $300. So we started making offers on these bank-owned REOs, and no one would ever accept our offer. And they'd be, oh, we accepted an offer yesterday. Oh, we got a higher offer. And so we kept trying to figure out that system to where we were like making offers, over asking within seconds of it hitting the MLS. And they went, sorry, we've already accepted an offer. And we're like, what do you mean? It's been 8 minutes. Right. And we're like way over. We found out later that they just had their people, that those agents just had their people that they were selling to. So they had investors that they would essentially, the bank would give them the house. They would sell it to that one investor, because that one investor was going to fix it up and hire them to resell it so they could get paid a commission twice. So we're like, man, so we couldn't get into that. So we started to look like, what happens before this? Well, what happens before that is courthouse step foreclosures.
So I don't know the acronym REO.
Yeah. So REO means real estate owned. But like when you see like a house that's a foreclosure, especially back then, right? You would see a sign that said like foreclosure on it. That would be like an REO. That means the bank already owns it. That means they took it to a foreclosure auction. No one bought it. Now the bank owns it and they're hiring an agent. Got it. We thought that was the only version of foreclosures. And then we started to learn that there was this process that happened first, that on the courthouse steps, they would have to like take it to sale first. The bank can't just say, you haven't made your payment, we get the house back. They actually have to put it to this public auction. And if it ends up selling for like $1 million, they have to give you the difference between, their loan and you. So that's why it's supposed to be a public auction. And so we started to learn about that, and there was nobody doing that business. It was really hard to understand. So
Hold on. So through the auction, does the bank take a big loss on that if the property sells for 50 grand instead of $1 million?
So the bank has two options when they take it to sale. So if you have a loan for $200,000 and you stop making your payments, they send you a notice of default that says, hey, you're going to get, if you don't make your payment in Texas, it's 30 days and California, it's 90 days. If you don't make your payment, then we're going to take this to auction and you're going to lose your home. All right. So now you owe them $200,000. The bank can at auction have the opening bid be $200,000 plus legal fees. So they can have it be like $215,000.
Got it.
Now, if it's too high, no one buys it. They say opening bid is $215,000. No one buys it. Now the bank goes, crap. Now we own the house.
Right.
Now we have to hire an agent.
Yep.
And now it's only going to sell for like 150 or something, or maybe it'll sell for 200. Who knows? Right. What the bank started doing. So for the first year of foreclosures, that's all they did. They put it at the debt. Nobody bought anything. So everything became this bank owned REO. As we started to learn about it, the banks were trying to get a little smarter and they were like, man, even though this person owes 200, if we could get $100,000 today, we'd be excited. Let's just get out of this. We're not in the business of like selling houses. We're not in the business of fixing real estate. Let's just take our even a bigger loss and get rid of it. So when they would drop the bids, the banks would take losses to do that. Cost of doing business is a bad cost of doing business then. It was super common. So we're starting to research this process. We go to the courthouse. We see a sale happen. There's 3 guys there and we say, hey, how does this work? And they won't talk to us. They won't even give us the time of day. We asked the auctioneer. He won't give us the time of day. So we watched for a couple of days and we're like, we don't quite know what's going on. That guy just said like John Smith had a loan from US Bank from this year and the opening was this. And the guys bid on that one, but then the next one came up and nobody bid on it. So we're trying to figure this out like on our own. We see a house that's listed gets a notice of default in the bank that's right next to a house that one of the guys that owned our company owned as an investment. So he was able to go like, hey, I own the house next door. If that could actually really sell for, let's say, $125,000, that'd be a great deal. Even in today's like housing market crash, that'd be a great deal because you're getting something for 50 cents on the dollar. So I went and started reading the loan documents. And in the loan documents itself, it actually says, if there's a foreclosure, this is the process. This is how it works. We had to do like title research on our own. We had some money from those like hotel deals. And at this time, I'm still an employee, right? I'm an employee that's grateful that I got a pay cut in half and I was still alive and kicking. But like creating this, helping create this industry. We go to auction. We're now ready. I've done the title report. It comes up for sale a couple days later. The opening bid is like $125,000. Does anybody want it? They go going once, going twice. The guy I'm with raises his hand and the auctioneer goes, do you want to bid? Yes. He goes, do you want to bid a penny over? We go, yes. And he goes, penny over, going once, going twice, sold. And he grabs the checks out of our hands. And the other 3 guys there go, and then we're like, wait, what just happened? Because no one told us what to do. We're trying to teach ourselves about this process. We think we kind of understand enough. We're desperate for a new business plan to work.
Yes.
And they're like gasping and they're like, oh my God. And we're like, why did no one bid on it? Why did no one else want this thing? We're so scared. Did we buy the wrong house? We asked the guy, like, why doesn't the receipt have the address on it? He goes, we don't put the address on it. We put the loan. Like, there's no guarantee of which address. Like, you're going to find out later. And to fast forward, 2 weeks later, the deed shows up. When the deed shows up, we go record it. We get a new title report. We own the property free and clear. We go door knock. We talk to the owner there. We pay them some money to move out. We fix it. We list it for like $200,000, bought it for like $125,000, and we get multiple offers and it sells right away. And we go, oh my God. Because right now, everything on the market was like either these short sales that the banks weren't accepting or bank owns that needed a lot of fix up. We were the only game in town that was actually a move-in ready house that an FHA buyer could buy. Right. So we're like, this is our new business plan for the next few weeks. We got super beginner's luck. We found out we had super beginner's luck on that first one because the next few weeks we went to auction every day and the houses we were trying to bid at wouldn't even come up for sale. So we had to learn a process. We had to learn a process that became repeatable and scalable that we really got down. Fast forward like 6 months. We're doing that off and on. I'm still an employee. My second daughter is born, 6 weeks early because my wife had gone from being a stay-at-home mom to working nights at a casino as a waitress. Right? She's 8 months pregnant, working at a casino. I'm like coming home from work. She's handing me our other baby, and then she's going to work pregnant. And it was like that moment when I was looking at my daughter, like with the bubbler hooked up to her in the oxygen mask, and she was just tiny. I'm standing over going like, man, I've let my family down. Like, now's the time to make a move. This is a big opportunity. Being an employee isn't going to cut it. Like I'm not going to be able to keep doing. So that was the thing that pushed me into a little bit of desperation, pushed me into becoming an entrepreneur to go like focus on this as starting a business and trying to grow it.
And that was through the foreclosure process.
It's through that foreclosure process.
So that's wild. And I think that very often it's that pressure that is the catalyst for people, some pressure. I want to keep down this path, but one of the things that I find fascinating about that is rewinding in life to, this is 09-ish.
Yeah, 09.
And rewinding in life to 09 and thinking about how you learned things in 09. And you just talked about standing at the foreclosure and just listening to people and trying to figure out what was happening. If you wanted to learn that process today, where would you go to do it?
Yeah. So now, I mean, the cool thing about it's a pro and a con, right? That was a big barrier to entry.
Yep.
So
kept people away.
So then when I took off and I had this home building background and this idea of like doing this at scale, I became the largest buyer very quickly because it was not a lot of people were in this market, and most of the people that were kind of like, you know, hustlers. And so I was the first one to take this and try to build it into a really big business. But so today, learning the same thing, I would have done two things. I would have tried to like offer those guys money, right? Like, hey, you guy that's doing this, can I come work for you? Can I come do some stuff for you? Can I learn from you? Now there's like courses you can buy online. There's a lot of online, you know, knowledge. Like now I've got courses and stuff on it for people. But I think the reality is you find knowledge wherever you can, and not being afraid to like ask people, and also being willing to kind of offer up money, but like research as you're finding it, especially if you're like trying to find, we have a lot of time on our hands if we don't have a career yet. Right.
That's true.
And so like you can like soak up all this different knowledge. And even before like when I went to start my own company, before I went to go like raise money, even then I went and did like practice runs for like 2 weeks. So I could show them like I was at auction. I had done the drive. This is what it looked like. I did the title. My max bid was 220 and I could have bought it for 210. See, like this business could work. I did a lot of like dry runs, a lot of practice, a lot of dress rehearsals.
Cool.
Type stuff. Yeah. So now it's, I didn't know how willing people, you know, the right people would be to share. But if you want to go learn something today, you got to go learn from people that have done it, done the business, or being able to look at online. The more people that have done it, the fewer barriers to entry. So maybe not the same opportunity, but you could try to look at other geographies too. Like maybe nobody in Sacramento is going to tell me what to do, but maybe somebody in Las Vegas or LA would have told me what to do. If I was like, hey, I'm not even in your market. Can I come work for you for a month? You show me what to do. I'll give you some profits, something like that.
I love that idea. Yeah, I think, 09, it's interesting because to me, so Easy Pay Direct serves the information product space really heavily, right? It's probably like 20% of our portfolio are people selling education about something. And one of the verticals that we're big in is real estate, amongst others. So we have, some of the largest real estate education companies that have ever existed. We do payments for. So we watch that model go of teaching other people how to do it. And I think for a lot of people, 09, 10, 11 was this, and at the time I had this perception that was sort of the beginning of online education for real estate. It wasn't all there, but there was this transition between sort of big seminars to internet marketing and how you could drive traffic online to sell courses like that. But the reality is that education has been around for decades through the, Robert Allens and the Ron LeGrands, that were there when I was growing up in infomercials.
Right. You see an ad in a magazine and go to a conference. Yeah.
Exactly. But as you mentioned, there were only a few of them then. And now I think one of the questions is, who do you listen to? Because now it's everybody, right? Now everybody's trying to teach it. What do you think about outside of just listening to Aaron Amuchastegui? How do you vet that? How do you figure out who's good?
Yeah. And you're right that I think 2009 kind of became that was like the birth time for all this online marketing stuff. Because one, very unique things were happening with the world, right? In real estate, and like people were, even the investors that came to us are like, we can't invest in the stock market anymore. They were like looking for new things. Everybody's looking for new things to do. And technology was like, the internet was taking off. And like we now had like Google Drive where you could edit the same spreadsheet at the same time. There were these things that were like pretty profound happening in 2009 and 2010 that really helped people start to realize like, oh, I can do this from anywhere. Oh, I can learn more interactively. I can watch the courses this way. I think the best way to vet people is just getting to see who's done it. There are people that I remember once like in college, somebody's like, we've got like a great professor here. But if this professor was so great at real estate development, why would they still be teaching here?
Right.
The ones we liked here, the ones that we really liked learning from were the ones that were like, hey, that were really, really successful developers. And they're like teaching one course at the college as a give back because they like it, because they're really trying to recruit some top talent. And so we really liked listening to the professors that are like, I do this all day long. Teaching is my side job.
Yes.
So people that like invest all day long, or flip all day long, whatever you're trying to learn. People like that's still their primary income, but they like are teaching because they like it or because there's a mutual benefit to them. I think that's going to be a lot more real. There's a lot of big names out there, that teach a lot of different things. And I think trying to figure out what's the incentive of them selling me this course. Is it just a one-way thing? And is this for fun, or they do like I host a podcast, right? But people know that podcast is like, it's passion. It doesn't make me money. I get to have these really, really fun conversations and meet people that like become my friends. I teach a course that's at my office where, 50 people come into the foreclosure course, and it's like a 6-hour course, and we sit there and we're going through it all, and they get to meet me in person. And at the end of it, I'm like, so if you don't have any money, follow this process to go find the deal and call me when you find the deal. And I had a guy 2 months ago that comes to the course. He goes and like ties up a pre-foreclosure doing my method, calls me and says, hey, will you buy this with me? I buy it with him. We flip the house. I write him a $30,000 check. So he goes from paying like $700 at my course to like becoming a partner of mine and getting paid. So there's a lot of people that teach out there. They're like, hey, I'm teaching you my secret because I love teaching it. But also, I hope that this is like a stepping stone to something else. And I can't think of many people offhand that do that, but I know there's other people that do that. They do the courses, they do the masterminds, they do that stuff because there's hope of, even one of the masterminds I'm a part of, the original reason it kind of got started is they wanted like more people that they could like have as investors, as partners, as things like that for future deals.
Yeah. Deal flow. I love that. I love that frame. And, I forget it sometimes. My general cheat code for that is at this point, and there are ways to, I think, engineer this if you don't have the network. But at this point, I can, in 6 minutes, look at all the social networks and see the common links. Mm-hmm. And just that gives me an indication of if they're a performer or not, right? I can see who our mutual friends are, which then lets me think about what group they're a part of, who they're tied to. And then I have some path to validate, right, to vet. And if you're not in those groups, if you're not heavily connected that way, you could still do that homework and see like who's following them, who's paying attention to them, right? Are there big names that are paying attention to that person? And that's at least a data point, right? It doesn't give you the foolproof. There are people that still are full of shit,
yeah,
that have fancy people watching them, as is evidenced by, the crypto world collapse, et cetera. Yeah. But it's a data point. I love that. Okay. So 2009 figured out foreclosures, but we have another looming collapse coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have several maybe, but I love the data point you said too with like social media and Instagram. Is there somebody that I respect that's listening to what they have to say?
Yes.
Right. Cause we're on social media and it's like a big old blowhorn. Here's what I think is important.
Yep.
So everybody's doing that. So if somebody that I respect is like thinking like, hey, this guy's worth listening to. This guy's worth following in their feed. The other real good data point I like to see. So it'll say like this person has 100,000 followers, but then you got to look at the video that they post and go like, how many likes and views and comments did it actually get? It's a real quick way to go. They bought their followers or they have their followers.
Totally.
Right. Like if 100,000 followers, they have 3,000 likes. Cool. They're legit. Like those are real. They have 100,000 followers and they've got like one comment and like 50 likes, which isn't uncommon. And you go like, oh, they don't actually have 100,000.
Pretty damn common.
Yeah. It's super common. Yeah. Really easy to figure out. Most people don't even think of that. They just look at the number. Totally. Every time I see the number and an invite from me, I'm going to click next to go like, so what sort of like interaction is happening? So 2009, but jumping back, 2009 happens. Mm-hmm. I'm now going, okay, I'm going to quit my job. I've got 6 weeks in savings. I go to my dad. And my dad was he was a home builder that his business was out too. And he had a little bit of money saved up. I would say $200,000. And I said, Dad, I've got this new business plan. We need to do it. I need you to be my first investor. I have a great idea here. Let me show you all the ideas, and I'll do this one, and I'll do the first one for free just to show you. And he's like, in a normal world, he would probably just say no, like it's risky. But because he didn't have anything else too, all of us were like in this risk taking mode because everybody's like, we all wanted to believe that something good was coming and something was next. He was my first investor. I went and I bought the first house with him. We fixed it. We sold it. It worked. And he got a good profit share. He goes, cool. Now I'm all in. Now I quit my job and we start, cause I did that like right before I quit. It was kind of like trying some proof of concept stuff, trying to, help my dad out. I quit my job and then a foreclosure moratorium happened. So now for the next 6 weeks, no foreclosures happen. I'm driving. Oh my God. I'm driving houses every day. I'm like going to auction every day. Nothing's actually selling. And I remember it was end of December 2009. I told Kalina, like, this didn't work. If I don't buy a house, we're out of money. If I don't buy a house next week, I got to go try to find a job again. Now, that's not the last time I had to go find a job again, but like 2009. So then next week, foreclosure moratorium opens up. On January 2nd, January 3rd, I buy 2 houses at auction. We're like off to the races for Dad. About 6 weeks later, he sends it to a buddy. Says, hey, look what my son did. Like, I've got this going on. Do you maybe want to invest with us? It was a guy that had invested with my dad years prior. And so he sees that and goes, oh, this is interesting. There's no good investments right now. Stock market sucks. Like, nothing is safe. Let's talk about this. And then I got a call from a guy named JJ who, essentially my dad's friend is named Arnold. JJ managed Arnold's assets. Arnold said, hey, I want to pull money out of my account to go invest with this kid. JJ's like, what? Why do you want to pull money out of your account to go invest with a kid? What's going on? So they called me and said, hey, we're up here. We'd like to hear about what you're doing. We'd like to hear about like your business plan. And I went up and like presented to them. And there's these 10 guys around a table and I'm like pitching my business plan and I'm like got whiteboards and they're asking me, well, what about this? Well, what about if people don't leave? Well, what about this? Do you ever bid more than you wanted? They're just grilling me. And somewhere in the middle of that, I was like, oh, this is one of my first big chances I've been waiting for. I like kind of realized in the middle of the moment, like, oh, this is the moment, like take it in. You're performing. And then at the end they go, so what are you looking for? I said, I'm hoping for a loan of around $200,000 or $300,000 to buy a house, to buy more houses. And they just kind of laughed and they were like, we are not going to do that. But if you want to try to like build something and scale something, we would really like to try this. And one guy goes, I'm in for $1 million. The guy goes, I'm in for $1 million. And one of them was like, he was like the VP of like Apple Asia at the time. Like they were big wealthy guys that lived in Incline Village, Nevada, because in Nevada, you don't pay California income tax anymore. Yeah. And I went from being a kid that had done a few of these to going, all right, now you have our full backing. How big can you actually scale this? And I was like, ooh, I got to practice. I remember running other people's home building operations going, if I was mine, I would do it like that instead. So I took everything I knew from that. And we were the first ones in auction in Northern California that instead of saying like every house had to meet a certain parameter, we looked at it on an annual basis. We want to deliver our investors 20 to 25% annual returns. If we're flipping houses every 60 to 90 days, we can deliver these giant returns. We built up these big systems. From 2009 to 2012, flipped over 1,000 houses, delivered millions and millions of dollars to investors. I had grown this big old beast of a machine where it was like company cars and health insurance and like too many employees. And like you would have thought like 2012, like I thought early 2012, nothing will stop me. I'm top shit. Like I am brilliant. Look at me, wasting money on all sorts of things, but thinking nothing's going to stop me now.
Yeah. Tell me about the difference of mentality between looking at the criteria and return of a single property versus, you mentioned it, the language you used was annual return. Mm-hmm. How did those approaches differ? So what did you let slide on the criteria of an individual house when you were looking at the aggregate of the year?
Yeah. The biggest part was knowing like real estate can be really high risk if you're buying one. If you're buying one foreclosure, if you're buying one house, then you have the possible upside of making a bunch of money on it, but you have the possible downside of what if this is the one where the occupant doesn't leave the house and he's going to take you to court for 9 months and you're going to have to sue the heck out of him. If it's the only house you have. So one was realizing that by one thing in particular, just by doing more, our risk was going to be mitigated. So we could start to look at like we don't always have to say like, hey, this is going to be strict no matter what. Our risk was going to be mitigated that way. And then we did a combination of, we wanted to buy a certain amount of vacant houses combined with a certain amount of occupied houses, because the occupied ones would take a couple months before we would get access usually. But the vacant ones, we wanted to keep like this monthly process cycling. So every month we would look at it and go, because based on the amount of money we have, we need to buy 10 houses this month. So, and if we always said, usually you go into auction and you say, I think it's going to sell for 200,000. I think it's going to cost me 20,000 to fix it. We want to leave a 10% margin. Our max bid is 150,000. We're not going to pay more than 150, and we're going to let it walk away. And if you're only doing 1 or 2, you're going to be really strict to those numbers. But when you're doing cycles, there would be other things that would happen and go, we already bought the house next door, the same plan. So we'll pay a little bit more for this one because we don't want a competitor to all of a sudden buy the house next door and like drop below us. We want to control that market over there. Or, if we only get 7 houses this month, then it doesn't really cover overhead the right way. So it's better to have, 7 houses at a 10% margin and 3 houses at a 5% margin. So we still get that 10 a month and like get to cycle the money, because dead money can also really hurt your investment returns. If you have a $20 million investment sent to you and you can only buy 1 house a month, they're never going to get good returns. Right. The key of getting that annual return is not just like being able to flip a lot, but it's that there isn't a whole lot of money sitting in the bank. It's that the money gets to cycle. So it was just realizing that by diversification itself, risk goes down. And then also like having a combination between, we need some quick ones, some long ones, and then also having our volume numbers, because the volume numbers could also sustain having the right amount of people employed. When you go to hire your first employee, right? Most of the time people hire their first employee before their volume before it actually makes sense, whether it's real estate or anything else. People love getting successful and then going, I don't like doing that anymore. I need to hire somebody to do that position. But the more volume you have, the easier it is to actually get help and have them specialize. Eventually you've got somebody that their whole job is turning utilities off and on, right? Like just calling utility company. There's 40 hours a week. They're turning insurance off and on and utilities off and on. And that was their job. Right? You can't do that if you're only doing fewer amounts. You've got people that are really, really brilliant spending, 3 hours a day on the phone with PG&E trying to get electricity turned on.
Yeah. That's super irritating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll move past that point from a technological perspective.
Yes. That should be so easy. That's definitely one of those things that should be so easy. Just isn't.
Unreal. Yeah. Well, I want to get to that because you have some software companies in the real estate investment space. And so that we'll get to technology and where that fits in now. But how did that company collapse?
Yeah. 2012, I'm thinking nothing can touch me. These 2 guys from Blackstone come out and meet with me and they go, hey, we're starting this fund. We're getting into this. We're in a single family rental space. Do you want to come work for us? We can like buy your company. We can do these other things. And I was a young, dumb, cocky kid. He said, I'm not going to go be an employee. You guys aren't going to beat me. We made I remember just saying we made like 80 grand alone last month just on commissions. Like even if I only do 1 or 2 houses a month, I'm fine. And they were like, no, if you don't come work with us, we will put you out of business. Like it's a thing. And I should have Googled who's Blackstone. I didn't. Right. Again.
You should have.
Right. I should have. I had felt like I built this industry. I was the first person to do it at scale in Sacramento. I was absolutely the first person to do it at scale in Sacramento. And it's a giant industry. It's a gazillion-dollar industry that's happening all over the place. And so I was very cocky. I didn't have mentors. I didn't have masterminds like today. I didn't have anybody that I could go to and say like, hey, what should I do? I hadn't invested any money. We were flipping money. We had cash in the bank, but I didn't own any real estate myself at that point. Because every time I looked at real estate, I looked at it as like a quick flip. I was like, Blackstone, why would you buy this house for a 4%, rent return when you can flip it and make 15% right now? It just doesn't make sense. You're the bad market. I didn't know what I didn't know. They quickly showed me that what I understood of their business plan was very flawed. And I got put out of business really, really quick, where they came in and they bought everything on the courthouse steps. They bought everything that was on MLS. So like thousands and thousands of houses, anything that could be bought in Sacramento, they bought full price on everything on MLS, full price on everything at auction. Oh. And so what I didn't realize is they were looking at it and going, housing is underpriced. This helped me big time in 2021. But like back then I got to learn that lesson. What they saw is everything is underpriced. They were going to buy everything on the market for, let's say, average price of $400,000 a house. But by buying everything, they took supply down to nothing. And within a year, the average price was $600,000. And they did this miraculous thing called just a giant cash out refinance, where then they got a loan against that $400,000 purchase based on the $600,000 value. And so they would get a $500,000 loan on that house. They did it across tens of thousands of houses in Northern California. And I was like, oh, that was their business plan, to actually get to return all their investor money. Now they're paying with 4% bank money, and they got all this stuff. So they put me out of business. I spent a couple of years going like, man, I blew it. If I'd have just kept 100 houses, if I would have like done things different, if I would have invested, if I'd have taken that job with them, if I would have like learned to list, there was just 2 years, Brad, of going like, I should have, could have, would have. I wish I'd have done this. I wish I'd done this. I wish I'd done this. And I had to like learn the lesson and like sit in the lesson and kind of stew in it for a bit. And there was, and at like, I want to say like mid 2014, I'd like learned the lesson. And I remember, but I also learned a lesson of like strength in entrepreneurship. And I remember a buddy of mine calling me for like a loan. And I was like, sorry, I don't have any money. Like, I'm like doing manual labor again on stuff. I'm like keeping different things. And like, I haven't lost my house to foreclosure yet, but I'm like wondering if I'm going to, which would have just totally been ironic. And I tell him, but don't feel bad for me. My next opportunity is just around the corner. And like, when it comes, it's going to be great. And so I'm like, and he couldn't believe that I was like laughing, like, no, it's fine. He goes, you lost it all? Like the big area, cause he was there like filming us when all the shit was going on.
That's funny.
And it was like maybe 6 months later, I had all these lessons that I was like, man, if I would have done stuff different. Maybe 6 months later, I owned this tiny apartment in Killeen, Texas, just north of here, that I bought in 2011. I'd only seen it one time. I bought it when I had a bunch of extra money, when all that stuff was going on. The only asset I ever purchased during that time. And it was only because it was so underpriced. My plan was to flip it, but then I never had enough like time to go do that. Agent that sells me that apartment sends me an email. Hey, apartment across the street's for sale. You should look at it, but we got to move quick because it's scheduled for foreclosure. I go, what? She sends me over rent rolls and everything. It's scheduled for foreclosure. I wonder how foreclosure works in Texas. Maybe I'll go out and try to buy this thing. I fly out to Texas. I'm terrified of flying at the time. I've got like really no money, but I have a line of credit left over from before when we'd like done our, essentially done my own workouts in like 2012, 2013. Now I've learned that process. And I go to auction. I've got checks. The apartment's going to sale. Going once, going twice. I have enough money for it, and I chicken out.
Oh.
I don't bid.
Oh.
I don't bid, and I'm like, and I call my wife, and she's like, what happened? Like, what do you mean you didn't bid? Like, we couldn't even afford the Southwest ticket that you flew. I flew to Dallas and drove 3 hours, so I'd only have to get on one flight because I'm scared of flying and all this stuff. And the reality is it had been so long since I had been successful, I doubted myself. I said, what did I miss? This has to be too good to be true. Like, there's nobody here. Like, I must have got something wrong. Texas laws must be different. Like, and so I'm just sitting there, I think in tears, like just kind of like kicking myself, like crap. And I got to go drive and fly home. And while I'm sitting there, just like totally feeling sorry for myself, another trustee shows up and starts selling houses one after another. And he's like $50,000, $60,000, $50,000. And nobody's there, Brad. And this is like 2015 in Killeen, Texas. And I look around and go, oh my God, this is 2009 California. Like I got my second chance again at an industry that I'm really, really good at. Nobody's doing this business out in Texas. And the biggest thing I learned from that first time was like, I should have just kept some more of these things as rentals. So 2015, I would come out and instead of like playing the short game of like flipping, I'd learned how to live with less. I wasn't making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month anymore. So I'd like buy 10 houses. I'd flip one or two, pay my bills, be down payments for the others, and we would save the others as rentals. And I said, prices will never go up in Texas. But I'm tired of that big old swing anyway. I just want nice and safe. So I'd buy 10 houses a month from 2015 to 2020 out in Central Texas. Along the way, bought some software and the other things. 2020 market obviously went crazy. And that bet of singles, that like really slow work of singles had really, really paid off. And then, just fast forward to real estate and we can jump in all the other stuff. January 2021 was this next time. So like in 2015, when I discovered Texas, it was great. I knew what the opportunity was. I had a new business plan, but it was going to take some time to like start raising money again for some of those old people. So I knew there was a big opportunity. I couldn't go as big as I really wanted. When 2009 first hit and I was like the first there, I also couldn't go as big as I really wanted. It took a little bit of time to scale, because people had like have faith in me. January 2021 was this perfect storm I'd been waiting for my whole life. And meaning I had an infinite amount of people that were messaging me, emailing me, hey, do you have stuff we can invest in? We would like to invest money with you. We'd like to loan you money. It was like people saying, so essentially I had an unlimited amount of access to capital. I had a business plan that I knew really worked. And in January 2021, I don't know if you remember, but it was actually a really slow time in the real estate market all of a sudden because people were like, man, housing prices really went crazy end of 2020. Now it's going to crash.
I'm waiting for the collapse.
There's no way that's going to happen again. There's like, it can't keep going. Yeah. And so January 2021, houses are starting to get stale on the market. Builders are starting to get a little scared. And we start looking at some of our own analysis and we go, I don't think so. I think there's actually a long, long way to go here, especially like we knew Biden just got elected. We knew there was going to be a ton of stimulus. We knew there was going to be an incredible amount of inflation. I remember texting a buddy in January, February and said, send me everything on MLS that's built 1985 and newer. We need to buy $40 million of real estate in the next 60 days. And it was like what Blackstone was doing. I learned from them, hey, this stuff's underpriced. The deal is you buy everything on the market. And if you can buy everything on the market, you can create it. And we bought so much stuff in January, February of 2021, new home neighborhoods, like the whole neighborhood, like every house that the builder had on the market. And 9 months later, by the time our bet had come to fruition, these houses were just finishing. And an example would be like a duplex that we had under contract for like 280, 290. It was worth 400 the day we closed.
Wild.
So we got to do cash out refis those moments. So that was like a big bet that was like waiting to happen.
Let me talk economics on that. And I want to talk numbers on that. Yeah, let's just talk numbers on that for a second. So you buy it for 280, 290 and it's worth 400 plus afterwards. And you said you were doing refis to get the cash out. Then the original money was coming from investors.
So some of those, so we had, so a lot of that was investors. But the unique thing with those purchases, when you go buy like, let's say a new home, you're giving them a $4,000 down payment and you don't give them the rest until the building is finished.
Right.
So by the time the building was finished, we had given them a $4,000 down payment.
Oh, got it.
But the building was finished and now we could actually get a $350,000 loan on that $400,000 purchase.
So you're not tying up shit.
We didn't tie up anything.
Wow. Like you're putting like 5-10% down. Well, usually though, I mean, at least, so I bought a bunch of condos in the last, I don't know, few years in Austin. And those are usually 5-10%. It might be a few grand down on the front end. And then when they break ground, it's 10%. Are new homes not like that?
So new homes are not like that. At least these. So something that added to the perfect storm was in a lot of these like areas outside of the core of Austin, they're not giant home builders. They're builders that build 50 houses a year. Right. And so they had these things where the bankers were also nervous at the time. So the bankers were like, hey, we're not going to give you any more money after slabs until you get these things sold. We want some contracts coming in from people. And so then we'd have to write. So essentially they're like, why would they sell them to us for 280 when they know they're not going to be done for 9 months? Well, because the bank made them.
Got it.
So we could lock in the contract at 280 and they didn't have these giant, but in general, most new homes, it's like the way that because they're not quite done yet. It's a lot of it's just like you pay a deposit, which is a pretty small amount, $2,000 to $5,000, and it's non-refundable. But other than that, like you don't pay anything else until the house is done. Because like, what if you don't actually like the construction when it's done? Like it is an out on most of the new construction, single family stuff.
Interesting. Yeah. The high rises are not like that downtown.
Yeah. Well, and the less savvy the builder, the more likely,
sure.
So
and the
high rises
market is.
Yeah. High rises are savvy builders.
Yeah.
Right. Those guys are business people. They know the pros and the cons. They know what happens if nobody actually closes on the thing afterward.
Yeah. Okay. So, but it's the same principle in that, basically when you contract these things and the bank looks at it and says, hey, there's demand to buy these, they're going to close X percentage of these. Okay. Here's the rest of the money to keep building.
Yep.
The neighborhood.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you get to the end and let's say you have a neighborhood and let's say you bought out 50. How are you cashing out of all 50? What does that look like in terms of financing for that on the back end?
Yeah. So it's like a neighborhood north of here, right by Buc-ee's, right? That we own, I think 80 duplexes in all next to each other now. So when we got our long-term financing at time of purchase and now they're just renters and there's renters in all of them. As a commercial, we have to do these commercial loans. Whatever the interest rate is for people out there right now. So if it's let's say it's 5 3/4, our rate's probably going to be like 7% because these business loans, they're non-recourse, right? There's no personal guarantee on them. And when it's like an entity borrowing instead, you pay a higher percentage rate because of that. And it was actually like a product that was kind of invented in 2013, 2014, when Blackstone and those guys started doing single family rentals. They had to create these new loan products that were like, well, what do you do if you have 500 houses that are all rentals, but you want to package them into like one securitized loan? It's not a Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac type portfolio type stuff. So essentially you pay more money for them. But if you look at the economics of it, right? So so a lot of those that we got in, I mean, rates were 3% normally. So like, let's say our long-term rate was like 5.5 that we got into at the end of that year. So the duplex, each side rents for $1,600. The 5.5% interest rate on our, let's say 380, right? So you're paying, I think if I was going to look at it, our monthly payment's probably $2,000 a month. Our rent that we were bringing in is $3,200 a month. But the biggest amount of money that was actually made was at purchase on a tax-free cash out refi. Because when you cash out refi, you don't pay taxes on that. So that gives you a lot of like, even if you're going to have like no cash flow for a couple of years. Now, right now, the market's changed a bit. We have a high amount of vacancy right now, a way higher amount than we had a couple of years ago. So we're having to be a lot more proactive at like, managing these things, when in 2020, 2021, it was kind of like home building back in 2005. Like it was easy to be a property manager. But the economics of it is essentially that it's just like buying a house, renting it out, getting a loan on it, making sure that your rent kind of cash flows. If you can cash out refi, that's the secret to like quick growth in real estate, and then multiplying that by a bunch of houses.
Yeah. So I want to dig a little deeper on the loan, but the cash out refi is a huge deal, because if you're making money in real estate by selling the property, you have a liability. And it's a pretty fucking big one. Yeah. Yeah. You've got to do something with the money that you make from the property, or the government's going to take a huge chunk of it. And that's either rolling it into another property, which very often is difficult because you have a very small window to roll it into another propery without.
1031 exchange is not easy.
No, it's not. You have 60 days to execute and find a really good deal. And that's, unless you're really active, that's very hard to do.
Yeah.
So that's a big deal. I love that. But the other question, and I want to just get a little more granular on the loan product, because I think for entrepreneurs that have some extra cash that get into real estate and they're buying things on a onesie twosie, eventually traditional loans, and what most people think of if they've done this, ultimately traditional mortgages, and you mentioned Fannie Freddie, the traditional mortgages have very clear parameters of what are allowed or not allowed in order to be resold to Fannie and Freddie, right? And one of those things is like debt to income, which is the bane of an entrepreneur's existence from a lending perspective for mortgages, because it's a joke, right? Yeah. Because DTI is a stupid calculation for an entrepreneur who, reports a small amount for their W-2, right? They're showing their income to be a relatively small amount. Most of their money is coming from the profits from the company, not their W-2 income,
right?
Which is how stupid mortgage people, stupid lenders calculate risk. So how does that change with the product that is made for a portfolio loan for this kind of real estate, and who provides that kind of loan?
Yeah. Yeah. It's weird. Like some of the parameters are more about like, at the end of the day, it's not as easy to sell. Right. And so it's not a 30-year fixed. We don't get to get 30-year fixed in this product either. So it's like we can get a 7-year fixed or 7-year. And at that point, it's automatically going to roll over to a new rate, or you refi or sell in that amount of time. With rates the way they are now, we're trying anything that, we're confident that if we can get anything new right now with at least a 5-year lock on it, then we know we're going to be sold. And they also have heavy prepayment penalties. So so some of these portfolios put 30 houses into the thing, we can't sell one of the houses for the next 2 years. Just can't. There's no option to, no matter what. It's just, you can't sell any of those. You have to own those for the next year, because they're looking at it like a diversified portfolio. They securitize them in their own way too. But it's not like a pre-sold, but they can package up a bunch of them, do stock with them. So they're like, no, it has to stay like this asset. We're like, well, and then even after those 2 years, so then after 2 years, there's this window for like a year or two where you're allowed to sell. But anytime we did those, we'd have to send them back over to them and say, hey, we want to sell this house. And they'd say, okay, before you sell that house, we need to see how the whole portfolio is doing. So if you pulled this out of there, they essentially don't want you to pull out a house that's maybe renting for twice its value, and then now your portfolio that was performing before isn't. So they put a lot of extra parameters in that of like, when you're locked in, So you don't have the freedom to do what you want with the real estate like you do with normal sorts of loans. So it's less about DTI, right? It what's really has nothing to do with your income. It's the income of the asset, but it means they really do everything they can to like take control of that asset, essentially. Like we can't do the same exact things with it anymore. That's the big difference where, now entrepreneurs, there's some lenders out there that are getting better. Like there's some local ones here that are good, that they're used to, like, if you want to buy a conventional mortgage for your house, they're used to looking at like what your P&L really should be instead. I remember the first time getting a loan for my house as an entrepreneur. They're like, well, we just need 3 years tax returns. And if you have one bad year in the last 3 years, you're just not getting a loan. And I'm thinking, this is crazy. It doesn't matter the amount that you had on there.
Any sense. The funniest is when you have the cash to buy it cash.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, we're not going to give you a mortgage. And you're like, what?
Yeah, we're not going to give you a mortgage, even though you can do that. And part of it is they want you, taxes, the government would prefer that instead of, so there's two different tax rates. Most entrepreneurs are going to know this, right? If you make $200,000 in your company, if you pay yourself $50,000 on salary and $150,000 is in the company, you're going to pay a lower tax rate on that $150,000. Mm-hmm. But if you put all $200,000 as a W-2 on you're getting paychecks, you're going to pay way more taxes on that. But the government loves that because they want us to be paying more. So that is why it's not a conspiracy theory or anything. It's just like a business plan. They run a good business and they're like, hey, what we should do is we want more people to have higher W-2s. So we want to make it harder for them to get loans. If they don't, they want to encourage you to, even the time I got audited, it was like, well, if you just had paid yourself a higher, payroll on your W-2, that would solve a lot of this. Like, what? So you wanted me to just pay more taxes essentially. And it doesn't make me mad. It just like is the way that it is. But yeah, so that's why they do that. And it is really, really hard.
So the government forcing the hand of every other lender in the country through Fannie Freddie, is that
absolutely. It's very simple, right?
Yeah.
To resell it, this is how we're going to rate stuff. And we are going to penalize people that essentially have income that isn't taxed at the same employment tax rate.
Yeah. Oh, I've never thought about it that way. That makes total sense.
It's really simple.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. So, when did the other businesses come into play?
Yeah.
So now you've got 850 single family homes. You said something like 160 are owned wholly by you, and then the rest you have investors in them.
Yep.
And so I guess before we get into the other businesses, how do you structure the money for investors? Are you actively looking for investors for that stuff? It sounds like now you have a pool that you just went out to, and what's the financial structure for that?
Yeah, we aren't looking for any new investors anymore. We're pretty much full. Sometimes people will reach out to us if they. The most common thing that's happened lately is somebody sells like a $10 million apartment complex. And they say, we want a 1031 into single family homes. Very few people can do that, but we're somebody that can, where we can go like, okay, we actually have 200 houses over here that me and my partner own. You can 1031 into that. When we do those sorts of things, where we're like selling them the product, we're selling them a large percentage of ownership of it. We still keep a percentage where, but that's a profit split only, where it incentivizes us to manage it properly. We did all sorts of different ways. Early on was the investors got like 75% of the profit with all these complicated waterfalls, and we got less. I think the oversimplified version that most businesses should just be is like, hey, there's no fees out there that get charged, but it's just a 50-50 split or a 60-40 or 70-30. Anytime you have all these extra fees, it's tough to know if incentives stay aligned, which means, am I acting in my best interest or am I acting in their best interest? So now we try to align everything that I only get paid when they get paid, no exceptions, right? So if I'm going to hire somebody to make my job easier, essentially we're splitting that cost equally. So am I only hiring good people? Am I only making good decisions? So now it's always where incentives are aligned, where we only get paid if they get paid, as we add on new things. But we did a whole bunch of different structures. Even in 2015, when we first started doing those, we were like, hey, this is a rental fund. You're going to make like 5 to 6% a year, but it's going to be nice and safe. And in the future, we're going to sell it. And, you can you might get a bump of like 15 or 20% more. And now a lot of those portfolios are selling, and that's been way better than what we thought it was going to be for those guys. But the biggest advice I can give anyone on structures is absolutely in line incentives with no fees, because also right now the market's changing a bit, right? So like some people that did portfolios and like Some people did syndications a year ago. Their syndications are failing. Business is changing. So now let's say I was only getting paid when you were getting paid. If the thing fails, they go, Aaron didn't make any money on this thing. Like he wanted it to work too. We all lose. Aaron just worked for a year really hard, didn't make any money. Our investment lost its money. We kind of feel like we're in it together. But the more common syndication is like, so this guy who's running the syndication, he's been taking a salary of $200,000 a year. He took a fee when we bought the property. He took a fee when we did this turnover. He took a fee with this, and now we're losing all of our money. So they're going, wait, the syndication failed, but that guy's walking away with $400,000 and we walk away with nothing. And those are the guys that are going to get their asses sued. And so that's what we were. So we knew that, in 2013, we had a bad year, right? We had a really bad couple years. And so as we were paying off those investors, we realized like, okay, like these were the mistakes that we made because these are the times when someone could come back and go, because originally we did have like fee structures and things like that. Now it's profit split's the safest way to make sure that you don't get sued if something goes wrong.
Yeah. Well, and for clarity, for anybody that isn't actively involved in real estate, acronyms and vernacular are very helpful to shortcut communication when you really thoroughly understand something. Mm-hmm. But even the notion of syndication messed with my head when I was early in real estate. And so functionally, it's when you don't have money to invest in real estate or you don't want to use your own, you can do a syndication, which is going out and finding money from other people and creating an economic structure where you as the person putting together the real estate deal, the general partner in it, then gets money from other people, which are limited partners. And there's some sort of financial structure between them. And so the explanation you just gave for those syndications was you as the general partner went from, hey, we're going to take fees to manage it and some independent percentage no matter what happens. Mm-hmm. And then we'll have some split with the rest of what's left. And you move from that model, which is basically everybody doing syndications.
Everybody does that, yeah.
To just we're in it together and we share revenue, period.
Yeah.
I think that the incentive structures that get put in place in business, period, and in the rest of life are so tremendously important and very often don't get the weight that they should, specifically with really good-hearted people that think, hey, we're just going to do what's best. Mm-hmm. But they fail to recognize the implications of the wrong incentive structure. I don't know anybody else that does syndications and just does rev shares.
There's a lot of well-intended syndication operators that have failed dramatically in the past 6 months, right? They had all the best intentions. They had they thought it was going to be a slam dunk. And it's like the smoke and mirrors thing that happens, which sometimes is just unintentional, right? Where they go like, we're going to charge this fee, this fee, this fee, this fee, but you're making 25% a year on your money. Because we're going to refinance it at 4% in the future and we're going to be at 95% occupied. And so the return, hence like greed, makes people not want to look at that incentive of like, what's the worst case scenario here? Like, what if it doesn't work out? Is there a clawback? Looking at the terms of any deal, any partnership, I'm still guilty of it sometimes when people are like, hey, can you come in and do this? I'm like not really looking at like what's worst case, what's best case on that contract and always seeing both sides of it. Because when you're looking at best case, you're like, cool. No, it makes sense, sir, that like you're going to make $300,000 this year because we're all going to make 20% returns. But if we make 0% return, you're still making that. So it's figuring out that risk reward incentive. Yeah, really understanding terms is important. And it kind of just goes back to like if you're flipping a single house, right? You're like, hey, Brad, give me the money for this. I'm going to go buy it. We'll split the profit. It's real simple. The math is really simple. But if it was like, hey, Brad, we're going to do this. But every time I go stand at auction to buy a house, you're also going to pay me $200. And then every time I buy a house successfully, you're going to pay me 1 point at the beginning. But then at the end, we're going to split profit. But like this time you get 60%. You might be like, okay, that's cool. But your question might be like, well, how many times are you going to go to auction? Right? Like, is it going to, because you're going to want to go like, well, what does that really mean? So if you go to auction once, I get a better deal. But if it takes you 2 weeks to buy a house, I'm actually getting a worse deal. So simplified just keeps it to where no one's ever questioning your motives.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, so at what point do you? And I think that this is a common challenge, and I don't know if there's a right answer, but there is shiny object syndrome, with entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
It's, and I think that it happens for a lot of reasons. Somebody's bored, they're frustrated, they've lost interest for some other reason in their current business, and or they rightfully think, hey, it's time to expand. And figuring out what drove them to expand and buy another business, start another business, focus on another thing, that's an interesting conversation in and of itself.
Yeah.
But at what point did you decide, hey, I'm going to start buying software companies or getting into software?
Yeah. I remember I learned so much in my first couple defaults. Like so in 2009, there's 3 guys standing at auction on the courthouse steps, hundreds of houses selling, right, in California. In 2012, when Blackstone comes in and puts me out of business, there's hundreds of people standing there at auction for 3 houses to sell. And I remember thinking 2 things, like Blackstone's going to win anyway. And the only guy that's really winning is a guy named Sean O'Toole that has software called Foreclosure Radar. Because all 100 of us there were paying $50 a month to use the software to see what was on the list. And it wasn't just in Sacramento. There was 100 people in San Francisco, and there's 100 people in LA, and there's 100 people in San Diego. So I remember thinking like, well, it's the old idea of the guys that made the most money during the gold rush were selling the picks and shovels.
Yep.
And so I saw that, and I remember like feeling pretty not jealousy, but like just understanding, like, okay. And 2017, I'm a subscriber of this other company that provides the foreclosure data. I had built back in 2010, 2011, a software in order to do foreclosures so we could do it at scale. We hired a team in India. It was my design. We built out this software. Essentially, we would use, because to buy houses at auction, you've got to drive by 100 houses. You've got to comp 100 houses. You've got to do title research on 100 houses. Now you have 30. You need to have bids for all of them, because when you show up, only 2 of them are showing up for sale. So it's a really big process that I know every time I follow it, I'll walk away with a house. It's simple, but it's tedious, and most people aren't willing to do it. So we built software to like streamline that. Early 2017, I reached out to these guys and I said, hey, I've got a great software that I would love to sell to your company. I started hearing about recurring revenue businesses. I started hearing about software. I started hearing about horizontal income from a mastermind I'm a part of. And I was like, that's kind of like a rental. I have this other asset here. I start presenting it to them. I build like a white label version, and the deal dies essentially. We're going to do it. I want to retain rights on ownership. We can't get the contract to work. And I'm like, it was a bummer. I'd invested some time and money. I was still pretty early in my new real estate growth. I had some houses, but it was like, it was a bummer. At the end of that year, the previous owner passed away, and and I sent an email that said, sorry for your loss type thing. And I got a call about a week later from somebody that was representing the wife that just said, hey, would you have any interest in buying this company? And I remember then, as we looked at that, and it was like, they go, would you have any interest in buying this company? And I thought like, wow. Because at first I'm like, why did I go down this path? And so that was, at that time was my ultimate hedge, because I was saying right now I'm still buying more houses than anybody else at auction in Texas. But someday it'll be like California 2012, where every auction location will have 100 bidders. And so buying that software was actually supposed to be a diversification play. It was going to be, by buying that company now, when there came a time that I was getting outbid at auction, everybody there was going to be using my software. So because one thing that can put you out of business is when there's hundreds of people bidding on the same house, you're not getting a good deal anymore. So that became I was going to sell the picks and shovels, and I was going to keep buying foreclosures as long as I could. But eventually, when I got put out of business again, I would be the one selling the picks and shovels. So that's how I bought the first software. Really, really fell in love with more like product design inside that, because I would use it and I'd go, oh, this would be able to do it too. I'd still be using it while I was out there. I was talking to people, loved the recurring revenue idea. And right when I bought it, I started going to like traffic and conversion conferences and things like that, where I bumped into you a couple times at some of those as we're trying to figure out like, okay, before people were like sending in checks once a month. And if they didn't send it in this month, and so it's converting to like, we only do subscription services and we only do online and we don't do checks anymore. And you have to cancel. We only do contracts. We started doing all these things because at the beginning when we first bought it, like some months it would make $50,000, but some months it would make like 10. And then some months it would make 100. And then some months it would make, so we're like, we lost money this month. We made money this month. So now we wanted to make it to where that sucked. Let's get rid of all these like people buying 12 months in advance. So we only do month to month now. on everything, different price levels depending on their level of effort. But I can tell you within 3% what our revenue is going to be this month. Right? Like every month, I know exactly what our revenue is going to be. If we're going up, it's going to be on 3% higher. If we're going down, it's going to be 3% less. But now I know what that cash flow is. So I started learning all I could about those businesses, about like the online marketing stuff. I'm most fascinated by that. I think those businesses have the most potential. And but I still get caught. It's like shiny object syndrome is something I've been super guilty of a lot. I think more so now what happens is I jump around more for short-term gain instead of long-term gain. So like, oh, my software company has a really good potential right now. But like January 2021, I'm like, but there's more potential if I just like focus on buying these houses right now. So like for 6 months, software company gets like, becomes the thing I'm not focusing on. I focus on these other things. So I struggle with still having too much on my plate and then having to like time block in a way. Now I'm better at like time blocking I have an email account for every company. I try to like go into one company for a while, then close that email and be done with that company for the day to try to give them all a little bit of love and then still try to cycle in on the focuses of it. But yeah, the market helps dictate that too. But I know there's a lot of investments and things that I started. It's really common for somebody to go like, oh, I want to own a bunch of rentals now. Oh, I'm going to go buy this portfolio of like 20 doors. And it like looks so good on paper. It's like people just start adding doors and adding rentals and things like that. And shiny object syndrome then can be really harmful because just because you want to own 20 rentals doesn't mean you want to own those 20 rentals, or just because you want to own a business doesn't mean you should force it. So I think shiny object syndrome, the way people can protect themselves is make sure they have a set of like principles that it's going to define, will I purchase this or not? All right. And that's what they need to make sure. So they have a set of principles.
Principles or criteria?
Criteria, I guess, like something that says like, I'm only going to buy it if this is true, and this is true.
Yeah. I love it. Well, I know we're coming up on time, but I have like 800 other questions.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No,
I talk a lot.
That's great. It's perfect. I think there's a lot of good stuff. So a couple quick ones. We talked about the difference between learning in 09 and 10, learning the process that you went through to learn foreclosures. And then we talked a little bit about software and how that helped in the software that was built. We are, in the infancy of AI. How is AI impacting real estate investment right now? And how do you see it impacting real estate investment?
Yeah, it's profound right now. I mean, when I got put out of business in 2012, I had huge teams running auctions, and I like built a software kind of right around then. And I'm talking like 20, 25 employees to do this stuff. And then I was able to, when I came to Texas, do the same volume with like 3 employees. Because software helped that. People are worried about like AI taking jobs right now. And I think that one, that's true. But the biggest thing that people really, the way they should look at it is AI is going to help me do the job of 10 men. So like get more productive. And that's also a way to get a raise, right? So like, let's say your job is building websites. If AI is going to help you build websites faster, instead of going like, oh man, they can use AI instead. So instead of delivering your boss's 1 website a day, now you can deliver 10 websites a day. Right? By using these tools. And now you can actually go to your boss for a raise and go, hey, I'm delivering 10 times as much volume now. Can I get a raise? So like AI should be thought about as that. What's it going to help us do to where now instead of selling 1 house a day, we can sell 2? For real estate property descriptions, it's huge right now. You can say, what should I do as a listing description for this house? And it actually knows things about my properties that I don't know. It'll say like the master bedroom's on the 2nd floor for a house I've never been in. I'm like, how does the AI stuff know that? And as we check it, it's pretty profound. I think that also you could say, hey, we want to do 12 newsletters to go out to, real estate agents. We need 12 newsletters that are going to go out to our customers, content that was hard before. And it spits out, here's ideas of 12 different newsletters. I'm like, oh, I'm starting a new foreclosure course. What should I call it? This or this? And it spells out, so much different stuff. And I think communication, like what's a good drip campaign for possible investors? What's a possible response to this? Like if I'm an investor. So I think some of the next iterations of AI are going to be more of that communication and chat back and forth with a prospect. On the property management side, it could be automatically saying, hey, you're behind on your payment. When can you make another one? And actually be having those conversations as the reminders, because people will pay the bill. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. When your internet gets shut off, they go pay that bill. Sure. Right? If we don't remind them, hey, you're behind on rent, like a lot of people won't pay until we start reminding them, until we start saying like, no, we're going to send you a notice. So I think AI is going to really help on the management side of the communication, where now somebody that's managing 100 houses can manage 500 houses because the tool helps them do that. And then also like on acquisition side, on communication, type stuff. We're looking now to try to find some developers that can help us look at our internal data and like plug it into the chat GPT type stuff to say like, look, here's thousands of houses that Aaron's looked at. Here's how he's come up with all of his max bids for them. Like, is there any way that we can, turn that on a little bit more? So I think kind of like the Zillow's estimates were like crazy when they came out. They're not 100% perfect, but like the technologies with all that's getting better and better. Like how much time does it save? So I think it's going to have a huge, huge effect on everything. And I think the best thing that people can like look at with any of the AI is how will this make me do the job of 10 men instead of going like, oh, it's taking my job.
There are a lot of hands in the pot with real estate, with any given transaction. What areas, what segments do you see going away entirely or being reduced heavily by technology?
Like in real estate or in other industries?
In real estate, in a transaction, for example, you've got, I'm going to miss some, but you've got, listing agent, selling agent, seller, buyer, mortgage broker, or multiple people in the banking side of it, title, insurance, and all of them want money. And in my personal opinion, an egregious amount of money for the role that they're actually filling. I have always believed realtors should get a flat fee because their work is not proportionate to the value of the property. It's just not. Maybe there are tiers, right? More difficult property to sell, less difficult, but it's definitely not a percentage. Title companies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Mortgage brokers, same thing. So how do you see that transforming moving forward?
All right, those are examples of incentives not aligned, right? Real estate agent gets paid no matter what, whether you make a profit or not. Title company gets paid no matter what, whether you make a profit or not. So the technology is going to change all that stuff. Like, so title reporting, like, does this thing have clear title or not, is going to become easier and easier at the touch of a button. And there's a few technology companies out there that are trying to be able to get you clear title reports now in a matter of hours instead of a matter of days. So that obviously is going to make it to where they can charge less for that. They can charge less for it because it's because instead of having one person at a plant do it and they can only do 2 a day. Now you've got technology that's going to be, so technology to bring those costs down. There are already some flat rate listing companies in real estate that their tech has made it to where they are giving the end user a 90% of the job for a fraction of the price. You pay them $500 for the listing instead of paying $5,000 for the listing. And so there are advantages to a real estate agent, but when you're looking at 500 versus 5,000, the technology will keep changing that. I think that that approvals are going to start to become more and more automated too. So like collection of a mortgage broker is going to call and say, all right, we need you to send us your W-2s, your IDs, your driver's licenses. I need you to relook at this. I need you to relook at this. Everything done in that process. A bot can be taught to do it. A bot can be taught to look at the handouts. It's just like TurboTax helps people do their taxes. Right? Like that can be done on every step of the way. And now it's accelerating so fast. Now with the new like auto GPT, some of the stuff where they can have the chats, the bots essentially talk to each other and go to these next steps. So I think it'll bring the speed of real estate transactions faster. I think now, everybody will be able to do something within, soon. People will be able to close within a week or two, regardless of the loan type, instead of just cash type stuff. And then it should bring all the costs of transactions down in theory. Now, it takes what happened first is companies will just be more profitable and they'll charge the same amount of money. Mm-hmm. So it'll be a while before maybe costs come down, but internal costs will go down first. And then what happens is now companies are making a lot more profit on that volume. But then as competition starts to come in, then they'll start to drop those prices because they'll realize they can hit those old margins. So first, what technology does is it brings profit in the internal companies up. It doesn't help any of us save money. But eventually it's an anti-deflationary tool. Think of TVs. My first like 30-inch flat screen TV was $4,000.
Yeah.
And now they're $200.
Crazy.
Right? Like technology is deflationary. It helps with that stuff.
I love it. All right. So last question, only in the spirit of time. If somebody has extra money, you went hard on foreclosures and single family homes. Do you think that's the best asset class for everybody? Do you think that there's a preferred thing that people should invest in? Does it matter?
Yeah. I think that I think starting with houses is good because it's like single and tangible. Like you could see it, you can walk it, you understand, you can learn from it. So I think houses, whether they're foreclosures or on the market. Now, the tough part right now is having to time the industry a little bit. So it depends on like the amount of extra money people have and how really active they want to be in it. I think real estate has an enormous amount of options, an enormous amount of opportunities. And I think that some people say, well, no, you should start with apartments or you should start with that. I think starting with the individual house is something everybody can relate to. You can start to see the economics of it and start to see how good of a bet or not. Right now, most markets are, down from their peak. If someone is like in Austin, prices are down 25% from a year ago. So they might be going down a little bit more soon. But if somebody wanted to buy today, if they were planning on holding it for the next 7 years, what we see in these cycles is like every 7 years, they kind of come back. I remember when the $750,000 house was worth $250,000, I said, it'll never be worth $750,000 again. And they're worth $900,000 in that neighborhood today. Mm-hmm. So like, it's just a matter of time in those cycles. So that's the nice thing. They say you only lose money in real estate when you sell. If you don't sell and if you can keep going, but nice solid houses, solid singles. Don't go for huge returns. Go for small. Start to learn the asset class. But I think single family homes is great.
Love it. Aaron, I appreciate you carving out time, man. It's always good to see you.
Yeah, man. Sorry that I talk so much. I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff we could have done, but thanks it's just been fun getting to chat some more and get to know me a little better.
You talking is literally the point of you being here.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it, man. I think there's great lessons for people, and I love going deep in real estate and the details of how it works, because I think for a lot of people, as they're trying to learn anything, the nuances are what allows people to grasp on. And people get lost when they're talking to smart people that are really experienced because they can't bridge the gap between the complexities and the building blocks that make it work. Yeah. So I think that we've done a decent job, hopefully, of going down that road a little bit.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, man. Where do you want to point people? Where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, Instagram is the best spot right now. So it's at Aaron Amuchastegui. I've got a pretty unique name. Once they get through AARONAMU, it'll probably find me. I answer messages on there. Any of the new content or courses or things that I'm trying to do and launch, I'll announce them there first if people have questions about the process. But I love talking about real estate. I love to kind of like trying to make predictions when you're asking people like what should they do with their money. That's a lot of the stuff that I try to share on there of like, oh, these banks are failing. What does that mean? This is happening interest rates. What should we do? The cool thing about all the big moves I made in the last few years, I announced them live on my podcast and on Instagram as I was doing them. So when I bought all those houses in January 2021, I told everybody I was doing it. I told everybody why it was a great plan and why they should be doing it too. So if people follow along, every bet that I do, I'm very public about it.
I love that, man. That's awesome. Well, thanks again for the time, dude.
This is awesome, man. Thanks for having me.
Love it. I hope you enjoyed the episode as much as I enjoyed doing it. I need your help. There are 3 places you can find Beyond a Million. The podcast itself, beyondamillion.com, which has some cool free resources, including a free course. And we finally launched the Beyond a Million YouTube channel. I would love it if you would go there and subscribe. And if you don't want to, you still would probably enjoy seeing the visual content. Check it out, youtube.com/@Beyond a Million.